Okay, so in this part, I'm going to show some other stuff that I do or I like to do to develop my legs. And again, this is stuff that I covered briefly at the workshop. I know people, they're not going to remember everything, so this is the reason why I'm doing this. Plus I like talking about this stuff, and it's just easier for me to reduplicate something than go through my almost 2,000 videos in my archive somewhere. So the other thing I like to do, if you recall, I was showing how I lift the feet. The other thing I do is I start then refining movement, or what I call refinement. So I lift the leg and I just try to hold it in that position for 5 seconds. And then I bring it back behind me. I try to hold it in that position for 5 seconds. Then, same idea, I take the foot and I like to bring it across. And I'll hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. Then I bring it behind me and I'll hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. Then I'll extend the foot out and I'll hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. And what I'm doing there is I'm training the muscles to be able to coordinate that kind of motion, but also to be comfortable picking up the foot and being in those positions under control. Obviously, if I'm kicking for real, or I'm hitting somebody for real with a knee strike, I don't have to hold it for 5 seconds or even 3 seconds. It really happens in a microsecond as I drop into it. But the idea is this develops the control over my body that I desire. And the reason is I want to be able, to the best of my abilities, to control my body, because when you move at speed, the speed changes the movement. And in a good way, because your brain, the part of the brain that controls speed, you got to train that part. And that's what allows you to actually jump to what I call accelerate into violence, or jump to warp speed or supernatural speed when you got to hit people. The other thing I do is I bring the knee up, same way. And I just extend the foot out and I try to hold it for 5 seconds. I almost fell there. And then I bring it back and I try to bend over with a slight bend in the knee and do the same thing. And the idea behind that is I'm developing this ability to be able to control my leg extended, reasonably extended, but I'm also looking to feel it in the hip flexors and the glutes, the back, all that stuff. The idea behind it is as I practice that stuff, what I'm doing is I'm also educating my body to be comfortable in those positions, to not panic in those positions. So if I'm in the middle of a fight and I go throw a kick and all of a sudden I lose a little balance, because I'm used to being able to have that leg out, or if I throw a kick and the person misses, and I miss because the person moves, I can go, oh, and I can recover. To me, it's unrealistic to train yourself in thinking you're never going to make a mistake. I think that's one of the biggest problems I see in a lot of martial arts or self-defense videos. They show how to do a technique. They show why you want to do a certain technique a certain way. It's all good stuff. And the problem, though, is they rarely show what to do if you do the technique and for some reason it doesn't work. Usually they'll say, well, you got to do it right. Well, the enemy gets a vote. That's the problem. So you got to also, at least in Warrior Flow, we also train ourselves, to kind of ask this question, if not, then what now? In other words, I throw a kick. It doesn't work. Okay. It didn't work. What now? Well, I got to figure something else out because I don't have a lot of time. So you got to train your brain. You got to train yourself to be able to do that. Not just think it, but you got to be able to do it. And you got to train the body to do that. This is the reason why a lot of the things we do in balance, we don't get wrapped around the axle over perfection. You want to try to be as perfect as possible, but it's just not possible. Perfection is unknowable. But what you can do is learn that should this, for whatever reason I lose balance, learn how to recover as quickly as possible. I can tell you now, the ability to be able to recover as quickly as possible is a major, major thing. In the next video, probably be just as short, I'm going to get into some other stuff I like to do when it comes to developing my legs.